welcome to this second evening of TOPIA Festival, Sound Art Festival. We will have today the sound performance by Jutta Ravenna with Sara Messeli. I wish you that you enjoy, and afterwards we will have an artist talk. So thank you so much for this performance, Sarah and Jutta. This amazing, very impressive performance. As we now have this opportunity to talk about the work and the work of Jutta Ravenna, what I know from your work, Jutta, is that you use some specific materials. I would say that always the last ones that I've seen by you, there were earth, and there was burying loudspeakers, and this idea of burying the voice, or avoiding the voice to come out, or maybe you can talk more about it.
Sure. So I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to all those first who are involved in Brazil and Berlin, who made it possible for me to participate to the TOPIA Sound Art Festival. And then, I want to talk about my physical approach to sound art by earth. So music is often based on the use of technical devices, and therefore I discovered for me this material, and in this frame I have built realized some other works related or embedded on very different cultural contexts, like in an oasis in Morocco, or in an atrium in Bolivia, Santa Cruz, or on a mountain of rubble in Egypt, Cairo, because of deconstruction. And those performances happened in a different way than this performance which happened here today. I always buried a loudspeaker in a hole in the ground in the previous cases, and played the sound from a technical medium, from a loudspeaker, and muffled the sound by earth. But in this performance dedicated to Brazil, instead of a loudspeaker, the human chords itself are used to produce the sound. And the body itself becomes a speaker membrane and transmits the sound more directly. That's the difference.
Can you tell us more about the motivation? I mean, what's inside you, or what is burning to motivates you to approach exactly this idea of burying in the voice or the sound being stopped to sound somehow in stages.
Yes, normally, as I mentioned, we use technical devices to change volume of sounds, and I tried to do it in a more physical and more elementary manner by myself, and I can't divide this activity of burying by earth from the sound material itself. I mean the screaming of a human voice. And therefore I want to talk a bit more about this material, about this acoustic material, the scream. The scream initially interests me as an acoustic material in its pre-linguistic rawness as a cry for help or as a reaction to an often existential threat. Every scream is always highly charged emotionally. And as a sound utterance, however, a scream will initially be seen as an elementary form of communication. I mean, it's a cry, it can be a cry for help or an alarm signal for all those who are within earshot. And yeah, medically, a cry of pain is also considered an indicator of pain intensity. Yeah, in the evolution, in the evolution of man with the upright gait and the erect head, the soft palate and larynx slid downwards. Now I mention it in a historical way, opening up an articulation space for linguistic phonemes in the pharynx of Homo sapiens. The evolution of man is always an evolution in the handling of emotions. Unlike other vocal utterances, a cry, as a culturally universal phenomenon, is really understood by everyone, regardless of linguistic boundaries. Its elementary character is shown not least in the fact that attempts to modify a cry in its volume succeed only within narrow limits. Even with vocal virtuosity, it is hardly possible to scream softly, and as soon as one screams very loudly, overstimulated vocal cords occur, the voice becomes hoarse and fails. This is where my work for TOPIA Brazil comes in. At this point that you fail to cry softly. In the cultural history of the 20th century, the scream developed into a cry of outcry, a cry of protest that sought to give pre-linguistic expression to emancipatory aspirations and articulate a political counterposition to the existing order within social discourse. So, yes, that's a possibility.
It's so interesting because yesterday we had this performance, the documentation of the performance by Mariana Carvalho, Elif Souksu and Niral Pomar, and they sent a call for women, and the question was, what do you want to put out? And some women really put out a cry, so they were using cries as outcries by women, and this brings me to our performer that is a woman, and that I would like to invite to sit with us here. And maybe you can tell us about more the work between you and how did this developed, this performance.
Yeah. Okay. We are working in other musical projects, and also we are both doing arts. And I mean, this artwork is kind of a sculpture. And for me, I need other possibility to express this idea, and Therefore, I asked you if you could imagine to realize it, and as you, agreed to it, we tried, and we tried it in different contexts, in different situations, and in this case, yes, in this context, but for you it's the first, or for us it's the first time that we collaborate in such an intimate situation, I think.
Yeah, we have worked together before in 2 other performances, this year and last year, but there were groups of people who were performing, so it's the first time where it's only me performing for Jutta.
And how was the process between Sarah Messeli and Jutta Ravenna? How and in the Earth performance exactly? How are you used to work with Earth too, or?
No,
Okay.
definitely.
Especially do you like to eat Earth?
It's not that often that I do that, no.
Okay.
But it was very interesting to work together with Jutta. We started out by going to the forest and screaming there.
Okay.
And that was really fun. There was someone who started answering our screams. And then we did the video where it was the first time that I ate the soil. Or I didn't eat it, but put it in my mouth and spit it out. And we filmed the video in a much bigger place where there was a sort of echo, and I felt really vulnerable screaming and sitting there with not that much clothes on and putting soil in my mouth, and sort of felt like a little kid that is screaming out of frustration maybe, and also the taste of the soil of the earth had so many put me back to my childhood in a way, because it reminded me of like playing outside and eating sand maybe as a kid. So it was a very intimate process, which I hadn't really thought of before. I thought that it would be interesting when Jutta asked me to do this, but there were a lot of emotions that came up during the video recording of the performance, and also now during the live performance.
So I want to mention also that it was very important to try the first series of cries in nature, because this work has to do a lot of with the relation between human beings and nature and technical environments. And for me it was also important that you have your female voice. So I could have looked for a male voice, but I wouldn't. For me it was very important, because I make a connection between the maternity and the fertility, and this sound material of a cry. And also I connected this work with the resonation space of a female body, not a male, because for example, when I realized it in Bolivia, I get in contact with the Pachamama cult, the rituals between female beings in nature, in the context of birth on the one side and death on the other side. That means people are suffering, and almost women are caring for them, and all those issues, topics play a role, and therefore
I understand. And one last thing that I want to ask is, have you had any special wish for this cry, or did you were you left free to develop was there a sound idea already for the specific for how she should cry out, or?
Yes, as I mentioned, for me, it's an outcry. It's against suppression, but suppression that's very open. Every one of you can interpret it by yourself. But I only mean by this female suppression, there are many, many other possibilities to feel suffocated. Yes, so therefore I will invite you all to talk about this performance and this elementary material of a cry. Also, I hope that we can go and get into a dialogue with the listeners in Brazil. Because, yeah, this.
Okay, I will just check my mobile phone.
So, if you like, you can come nearer, and maybe somebody of you has some, questions or something to say about this very emotional, event. Yeah, Vanessa. Please.
So then I will invite my project partner Vanessa de Michelis, and just.
Hello, hi, thank you. We have someone actually from Istanbul that's in the chat, and they're saying hello to you. The TOPIA Festival is a partnership between Brazil, Germany and Turkey this time. So Elif, actually the performer that Lauda mentioned, who they sent a request for women in their network to send audio recordings of stuff they wanted to put out there. So they put speakers in their mouths, and through an amp, they would play walking on the streets in two cities in Brazil, in Istanbul and here in Berlin, and they would transmit this outcries of women through the speakers walking across the streets. So Elif was just saying that she's amazed by the relationship with your performance, both.
Wow.
Yeah, one putting outcries from people that had their voices muffled elsewhere, and then your performance that has the voice muffled here, but also both seeking the same expression. And
That's very important to know this, because to put a speaker into the mouth is also a familiar connection between technical and organic material, and like you did, you incorporated not like eating, but more in a spiritual way. You agreed with it to put it in your mouth, and also this activity of putting a loudspeaker into your own body is very unusual, very open-minded to do things with technique and sound.
Yeah.
I mean, the sound material.
Yeah, I was wondering, I wanted to ask you too as well, because in connection with our other performance, it made me think that perhaps if maybe in another iteration of the project, people could send voices, cries and outcries, and that you could cry the people's cries and bury it, but as in an intention of healing the sort of process of the cry rather than muffling it, but maybe eating the earth could also be a way of burying, but in terms of putting it behind, like overcoming it, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, interesting approach as well. Because I really like how there are different ways of interpreting the whole performance and different ways of seeing a sort of symbolism behind the scream and the earth, soil, and so that's definitely an interesting approach as well.
Yeah.
Okay, you said healing. I understand healing. Yes. I don't think so much that it could be something like healing, but in the way that it's in a kind of self-impression. Maybe it helps you, but it don't heal. It's a provocation to say, hey, stop, okay, that's it, not not the end of or a solution of it.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. No, of course. Yeah. So would anybody else would like to come in and?
Because we have the program will go on the internet, but you can stay here as it is. And Vanessa is taking care of our streaming, so we can take the microphones again, and it can go on here in our round. And if there are some questions from the audience, yes.
Oh, maybe Jutta.
Yeah.
For me, it was two things after the discussion as well as after the performance. I'm thinking about two aspects of the performance. The first is so to say the negativity. It is describing the situation as it is today, as an outcry, and the outcry is silenced by kind of repression, perhaps you could say. This my impression about the performance. And the other thing, kind of the contrary perhaps, is a quite artistic way to present it. It's a quite formalized way to muffle the voice, and the quite kind of ritualistic or kind of stoic, perhaps you could say. You're just doing it like a singer would do it. So it is so emotional, the topic or what you're listening to, and you're doing it so virtuous. So that's what I want just only to say. Those are my two impressions, which I really find quite interesting.
Yeah, I think it's important to find an acoustic or a musical form to deal this emotion, because it's so in a kind it's too strong if you, in my opinion, deal with it. Improvisating with it or in a virtuous way, and therefore I use a very poor process, only the volume, step by step, by special by earth, with your only hand, only with your hand, your body.
Anybody else?
thank you for the performance. I felt very sensibility by all acting. It seems it's very sensible. Every little geste, I don't know, gesture you do counts. Yeah, every moment counts. The very that I felt, and for me comes at the end a happy end, because you put it slowly out, and it was also a sculpture for me, as the contrary. Yeah, you eat, but you gave your time to put it slowly out, and this was a very good picture for me. As it's coming here, so falling out. It was perhaps a little sound when it's falling down, but nobody knows, yeah, was it a sound or not? And yes, that's what's for me.
So that's
I don't know
interesting that you mentioned it, because in the for the presentation in the exhibition you can visit the next 2 weeks here. I show a loop of this performance in 2 directions, in 2 time directions. The first, at first you are eating. We see the eating, and with the scream, and then the video rolls back, and the earth flies back into mouth. That's very important for me, because it's a circle. It's a circle of life to eat and to lose what you've eaten, and yes, all this isn't shown here, or is shown, yes, by your gesture. And yeah, thank you for your idea.
What I found interesting was that Zara, you put more of the earth and the soil into your mouth, even though your mouth was already full. And I think that's a nice symbol, because in a way it shows, well, you couldn't put any more soil into your mouth. You couldn't take any more soil. And an outcry is also something you cry out because you can't take something anymore. And I think that was a nice symbol that I'm only realizing now after the performance. But yeah, I found that very interesting, because it's a metaphor that goes both ways. I like that. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, anybody else?
So if can just keep talking here in the room, just keep going. If nobody has something to add or to ask, then I would say, do you have anything to add? I would just thank you, and thank Sara Miceli, and thank Aaron Sound, Goethe Institute São Paulo, and our partners. And we go on with our program at 8. We will start with the presentations by Isabel Nogueira and Luciana Zanata, Betamaxers Wormholes, Betamaxers project Wormholes. See you. You keep the same. We are not keeping the same video. We are just stopping this transmission, and we start another one in the YouTube channel. So see you at 4 in Brazil, at 8 in Germany, in the same BET channel.